Thomas Leiper House, 1785. Hello YouTube, Sean here, welcome to my channel, Saul Good. And today we're at a place called the Leiper House, the Thomas Leiper House. Now this place is a very special place to me because it's near where I grew up, and I've spent a lot of time in this area. So I wanted to show it to you, and there's a lot to cover. I want to make it very clear that I am not a historian by any means. I'm just a local who happens to live around these places, and I just want to share them with you. So if I say anything in this video and in any others that's wrong, please correct me. This is just what I remember off the top of my head. So let me show you the house. There you go. Now the Thomas Leiper House is one of the oldest houses in America. It was built in 1785, and it's certainly one of the oldest estate houses in this part of Pennsylvania. Now it's closed right now, so I'm not going to go explore too much. But I did want to give you a little feel for it. I actually don't know if anybody's even inside. Maybe I could just walk around. In any case, maybe we can at least climb up this wall and I can show you the plaque. Right? There's a nice plaque over here. So, the plaque says, "In the valley spanned by this bridge was the northern terminus of the first permanent railway in the United States. The road projected by Thomas Leiper." Okay, so yeah, stone from Crum Creek to the Tidewater on Ridley Creek from 1809 to 1828. Ain't that something? And when they say the bridge, they don't mean that right there, okay? They mean a different bridge thing. If you you know, have seen my other videos, you'll know that one of the major infrastructure features of Delaware County is the Blue Route, which is a major highway, 476, that cuts north-south through this part of Delaware County. Basically to connect I-95 to the Northeast Extension and the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And it was built in the 1970s, and the highway really cuts through some very important places in Delaware County. It's kind of a shame that so much was lost, but thankfully they were kind enough not to destroy the Leiper House. You know, the highway's right here. They could have just built it straight through the house, but thankfully they had the sense to leave it. And people like me now get to enjoy the house. So that's if you hear background noise from the highway, that's why. So wow, it's a beautiful house, isn't it? So it was built in 1785 after the Revolution, and it was settled by Thomas Leiper. Now Thomas Leiper was a Quaker, and when he got his commission, presumably from the Penn family, I don't know exactly how this place was established, but he built this house on Crum Creek, which is just down there. That's Crum Creek. And he chose this location presumably because of its proximity to the Great Minkus Path, which is just maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile up the road that way. And this area was where the Great Minkus Path crossed Crum Creek. Now he named his estate Avondale, which, if you know anything about Scotland, which is where he's from, that's a very Scottish sounding name to me, at least. Sort of a Victorian, or almost maybe, I don't even know what kind of name that is, but he also called it Strathaven. And Strathaven is the name of the high school that I went to in this area. It's also the name of several other places around here, like the Strathaven condominiums. And Strathaven is a place in Scotland that Thomas Leiper, where Thomas Leiper was born. So he named it after his hometown. It's nice, right? There's the plaque about Strathaven. And they're really making a big deal about the railroad that he built here. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to go too much farther into the house or the grounds because, again, it's closed and I don't want to disturb anyone. Well, maybe I'll take a quick gander. Why not? No one's here, right? And I don't see any cameras. I mean, I'm sure there is good security, hopefully. But hopefully they won't mind. Won't go too far, but I did want to show you something, which is this area. These back buildings. Now, when I was in high school, that building back there, the old stone building, that is actually what was the latrine, or what they called the necessities back in the day. And all right, I'm gonna leave now. That necessities building is also, you know, latrines back in the day were, oh, there is someone here. Wait a second. Make sure, see that car backing up? Hopefully I didn't disturb them. Oops. Do they want to chat with me? Let's see. I'm going to turn the camera off. We'll see what... Alright, he didn't really care. He just wanted to say hello and told me I could walk around and do whatever I want. So, anyway, yeah, so now, you know, that house, I was telling you about the latrine there, and basically, you know, latrines were also basically trash pits. So when I was in high school, the Leiper house decided they wanted to excavate the latrine and some of the surrounding areas in the woods where back in the day they had a big trash pit. They would just dump all their trash. It was a really interesting project. I did not go down into the latrine. I don't know. Not a big fan of ancient poop, but that's just me. But it looked interesting, I will say, and it was obviously sterile. And I'm sort of joking here. I actually don't really care. I would have done that in a heartbeat. But the surrounding woods are also filled with old trash, and I had a really fun time when I was in middle school, and yeah, in digging around in that trash heap, and I found old scissors from like 1790. Found, like, I don't even remember, all sorts of pottery shards. They found amazing glassware and chinaware, which is on display in the house up there, so you can go check that out. Now, I did want to say earlier, I wanted to finish the story of basically, you know, when this place, I'll tell you a little bit about this place, so you can see around. And there's the house up on the hill, and then there's this nice low area, and then the creek, right? And you can see the creek is covered in snow and ice at the moment. But this house was built here because, as I mentioned earlier, the Great Minkus Path crosses the creeks about a quarter of a mile that way, or half a mile that way. And so this was a major trading route. And in the, you know, how do I explain this? You know, when the area was colonized, first by the Swedes, and then by the Dutch, and then by the Swedes again, and then by the Dutch again, and then by the English, you know, they had the colonies had wars with each other, and this area was transferred back and forth. Ownership was very chaotic in the, like, and I'm talking, I want to say 1640s to 1730s, somewhere in that range. So for like about 150 years, whenever intensive farming of this area started, there was a period where there would have been Native American villages right here on this plot of ground, and that was largely before colonial contact. So up until, the 1630s or I think about 1620s, maybe 1620s, 1630s. Through all of the 1500s and up until the early 1600s, there would have been Native Americans here, and they were the Lenape tribe. And the Lenape were very different from the Susquehannock, who were more warlike. The Lenape were pretty peaceful, and they weren't as organized. Like the Susquehannock tribe had a government, sort of centralized power or decentralized autonomous groups that functioned together, but they had organization, whereas the Lenape pretty much were just a group of people, and they were distinct from the Susquehannock in terms of lineage and culture, but they weren't really organized. They didn't have a centralized government. All of the villages in the Lenape, in this area, at least along Crum Creek, were very sort of, autonomous. They were just little villages with people living their lives, doing their thing. They didn't have advanced, government organizations or anything like that. So here's the thing. When the Susquehannock wanted to expand their territory, they came here and they killed a lot of Lenape, and they persecuted the Lenape a bit. And then the English and the Dutch and the Swedes showed up, and they persecuted the Lenape a lot, and also got them very sick with smallpox. So there was a huge smallpox outbreak. I want to say 1630s or 1640s. I'm not a historian, so this is all off the top of my head. But at that point, most of the Lenape were wiped out. And by the 1730s, I think, by the 1730s, this place had mostly, the Lenape were mostly gone. There probably there would have been a few Lenape villages still, few Lenape hanging out, but they were displaced, and they didn't really have a location of their own. There was no spot where they could establish a permanent village in this area and not be terrorized by the settlers of various groups or the other Indian tribes like the Susquehannock, and so the Lenape were kind of in a bad spot by that point. And yeah, that's too bad. Presumably by the time, I keep saying presumably, I'm pretty sure that by the time Thomas Leiper established his house here, there were probably only a few Lenape left compared to the sheer quantity of villages that would have been along this river. Okay, I'll stop there for a sec. Okay, when Thomas Leiper settled here, this place was prime farm country, and it was in the middle of a period in PA and generally New England and the mid-Atlantic states, and really all over the eastern seaboard, but especially around here, this whole area, all the trees were cut down for logging. There was intensive logging of the old growth forests. So Thomas Leiper settled here because it was super lucrative for him to cut down all the trees and then ship them into Philadelphia, or down Crum Creek to Chester, and then up the Delaware to Philadelphia. And after a while, he was successful enough. He had built some mills. I believe there was a mill up that way, right where the Great Minkus Path would have crossed Crum Creek. He built a mill, and from that mill, it was a lumber mill, I believe. He built the first railroad, and that's what that plaque was talking about earlier that I showed you. It's the first railroad in America. right? And it was only like, I think it was like less than a mile, maybe like 3/4 of a mile long. And it just took the lumber from the mill down a ways to where it could be more easily transported to wherever it needed to go. So if you're really into trains, you should come here. And I don't know if people know about this spot. Especially, I'm surprised. I don't know if you're a train person. Tell me if you've ever heard of the Leiper Railway. I suspect it's not very well known. So, but it should be well known. Very important engineering feat to create the first railroad in at least Pennsylvania, if not the rest of the country. Probably not the rest of the country, but definitely around here. It was the first one. And that's saying something, because Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, is famous, or it used to be famous, for its railways. Pennsylvania is coal country after all. And so throughout the woods in PA, you can still find like old railroad tracks from coal mining operations and various industrial applications that brought mostly coal from up in the mountains, brought it down to the lowlands and down to Philadelphia, and then also up to New York to carry the coal and the iron needed to build New York. So there are a lot of railways around here, and the very fact that the first one in PA comes from right here, that's saying something in the history of railways. So that's a little fun fact for you. I don't know. I'm gonna wander around. I mean, personally, this place, I used to come here, like all the other spots in the woods around here. This is where I used to hang out with friends, and I actually used to really enjoy. You can sometimes, over the years, trees fall, right? And you can get across the creek. So I used to go on runs. I used to run cross country. And I'd come down here and I'd hop across the creek on a log. And across the creek, there's another trail that goes all the way down Crum Creek, pretty much all the way into Chester. I think you can pretty much follow it all the way into Chester if you want to. I used to wander around, and of course there's the underpass, and there are several other underpasses and interesting places. I mean, those places are all full of graffiti, but they're still fun. So yeah, there's just little local wisdom for you, little local knowledge. I'm trying to think what else I can tell you about this area here. I gotta stop anyway, so I'll get back to you if I find something interesting. All right, let's see. I think this is the smokehouse. Yeah, smokehouse and spring house. Yeah, this is very important. You can read that. You can pause that yourself if you want, but essentially it's about preserving food, right? It was hard to keep things fresh back then. They didn't have freezers or refrigerators yet, so smoking and keeping things cool was very important. And that's what that little building was for. And yeah, here we are. Old latrine that I helped excavate one year. I remember the guy who organized that trip climbing down. It's a pit, and it drops down like beneath the ground level there. So quite an impressive little latrine. And here's the carriage house, okay, where they would have kept the animals. And then back here is where I remember there's a big dumping ground, essentially, like right off this hill. If you cleared off the leaves here, pretty much down in this area, you could probably find a lot of interesting old artifacts there. And yeah, so again, I remember finding bottles and old eyeglasses and scissors. I think that was my major find. I remember the scissors very well because I was extremely excited to find something sharp, you know. But they were very delicate scissors. They were like little, you know, they weren't like shears by any means. They were definitely like little, almost like surgical scissors. So, man, I haven't been up here in maybe 20 years, to be honest. Let's see how close I can get to the highway. I'll look and see. I'm trudging through the woods here. And look at that. That's the highway. And here's this old stone wall. Wonder if this is an original stone wall from colonial times when Thomas Leiper lived here. I don't know. If anyone's a masonry expert and can tell me, that would be great. I mean, there is this really old stone here, and they're way back down there. There's a similar stone, so maybe there was some sort of chain connecting the two. I don't know. I also feel like this is the sort of place where there would have been graves, so maybe someone was buried around here. It does look like a driveway, though, doesn't it? You know, that tree. Imagine that tree wasn't there yet, so there would have been a pathway. And then, yeah, there's the wall of the highway. So I'm not gonna go too much closer to it. Just wanted to show you. And there's some crap, there's some trash here. Like, what is this? Lord knows. Something modern. Ooh, look at this. What could that be? Ah, Tropicana apple juice. Yes, the ancient Lenape were famously very into Tropicana apple juice, and decided to oh gosh, look at this. There's even more crap back here. I don't even know, it's probably a grill or something. So, all sorts of stuff back here in the woods. Most of it's modern. Most of it's just trash. But maybe in the springtime or another time, I'll come back and do an actual hunt of things through the woods here and see if I can find anything. So, okay. Now here's an interesting little bit of history I did not know. I was walking by this building. Let me see if I can, here's the Leiper house right here. And I'm in the backyard. And look at this building. Look at these slits, right? Those are obviously defensive. That's a defensive window. And it's, turns out there's a good reason why, because this is a little bank vault. So if you're interested in the history of money and finance, this is a very interesting thing for any finance nerds out there. Let me see if you can get there's a little bed and display. Ooh, I wonder what those documents are about. Can we read it? Not quite. Oh, look, you can see some of the pots and fine china that's been found. Yeah, these would have all come out of the latrine. And I actually remember it. So the big pot right in the center, that's a chamber pot, I believe. And some of those other bottles would have been found when I was helping to excavate the latrine. So isn't that cool? Those are some very interesting building right there. It's basically a little bank. Keep your gold bars safe, right? If only they'd known about Bitcoin back then. Man, imagine that, you know? Before Bitcoin, before the dollar, that's how you had to keep your money safe. You had to have a little storehouse that no one could get into otherwise. Okay, I think that just about does it. I hope you enjoyed this little excursion through Leiper House. The Thomas Leiper House was, it's a very cool place. There are so many of these interesting houses scattered around this part of America. So I'll be doing a few more of these places. I like to visit the old colonial sites, but specifically the ones that have relationships with the ancients. We're on ancient land, and I'm prioritizing them in these histories because, look, we're American. We love our American history. Go the Revolution, Founding Fathers. Definitely thankful for all of that, but we don't spend enough time on the people who are here before us. There were actual, whether you like it or not, the white settlers were not the first people here, and there were nations here. The Iroquois Nation had an actual government. The Susquehannock tribes had an actual government. Even if, and governments are sort of a Western creation, right? The European settlers brought governments that were based on property rights. That's one of the whole points of a government, is to protect property rights, which the Lenni Lenape certainly didn't. They didn't share that cultural feature. And, you can look it up yourself, but that's most of the reason why they were kind of tricked out of, or variously removed from the land, is they just didn't understand what was happening. They didn't understand what property rights even was. And places like this, as beautiful as this house is, it sort of is here because of that legacy of the displacement of the native populations of this area. And I growing up here, I didn't even know that there were Indians in these woods. I mean, I'm sure I was taught that at some point. I'm not saying my education was bad, but if you're growing up in Delaware County, it's not like they're telling you all the times that the Paxton boys killed all the Conestogan Indians, or we're not learning those kinds of darker histories of this area. And we really should know that. We're from here. I was born around here. I should know about the various tragedies, the various joys, the cultures of the people who have lived here for thousands of years. That's my personal crusade. So I'm not going to use that word crusade either. It's not a crusade. It's a personal mission to bring awareness and just for my own sense of justice. I feel like I need to do right by the ancestors, right? So I didn't see speaking of ancestors, I didn't really see a specific bird of prey, but the entire time I've been making this video, I'll flip the camera around, the flock of starlings up in that tree. Look at all those starlings. Starlings are an invasive species from Europe, so that's unfortunate. And I'm hesitant to say that the ancestors are watching us. The existence of some starlings here. I feel like, I don't know if they are birds, so maybe we can blur the lines a little bit. But in any case, thank you to the ancestors for allowing us to walk here, and thank you to the people who are preserving the Leiper House Live, that gentleman I spoke with earlier. Thank you for permission to walk around the grounds even though you weren't here. And to every organization that's keeping this place clear of litter. These areas are often trashed. People come back, these places aren't visited often, so people come back here and dump trash. We already don't respect it. Look, I'm directly under the highway now, right? It's not like we've taken much pride in this area so far. But that house is important, and it should be here as a marker remember this, to help us remember this area. All right, I'm rambling now. I'll sign off. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, subscribe, and I'll be doing more in the future. Okay. I'm Sean from Saul Good. Take care. Bye.